As they leave the stage, please give them another warm welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Santos. Thank you. Yes. Welcome. Good morning. I'm Matt Ryan, principal of East Hartford High School. I want to thank Greg Hoyt and, of course, our band students for their efforts over the past few weeks. They've been getting ready and prepped for today and for the year, so thank you very much, guys. Welcome back to a new school year. I hope you all had a restful and rejuvenating summer. I know I did. I wasn't in the building until around, what would you say, Porch, 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning? Hope your summer was filled with moments that recharged your spirit. As we step into this school year together, let's remember the incredible impact that we have on our students and one another. Each day is an opportunity to inspire, empower, and guide the next generation towards success. As Henry Adams once said, a teacher affects eternity. They can never tell where their influence stops. Let's make this year one of growth, collaboration, and meaningful connections for our students and ourselves. And don't worry, if the copier jams on the first day, and it will, we'll just call that team building. We have several speakers lined up for you today. First up, welcome back to school. We're from the East Hartford Board of Education, our chairman, Mr. Tyron Harris.
So welcome back, East Hartford educators and staff. Maya Angelou reminds us that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So each of you has the power to create those lasting moments for our students, moments of confidence, belonging, and joy. Thank you, East Hartford students. Thank you for making East Hartford students feel seen, valued, and inspired every day. Here's to a year of growth, laughter, and success together. The only question I have for you now is, why did the teacher wear sunglasses to school? Because their students were so bright, just like the Teacher of the Year, Mr. Drew Dunnack. Welcome.
All right, good morning, East Hartford. How's everyone doing today? Good, good. Thank you, Mr. Harris, for that introduction. My name is Drew Dunnack. I'm the Spanish teacher at O'Connell Elementary and the 2026 East Hartford Public Schools District Teacher of the Year. Thank you. Even though this morning marked the first time since early June that I had to wake up to an alarm, it's truly an honor to be here today to help welcome back all of you to school and usher in the new school year. Whether you're still mentally at the beach with your toes in the sand, or have been counting down the days to meet this year's new batch of students, I hope your summer was filled with rest, great memories, and moments that left you feeling refreshed and ready to make a difference in your students' lives. This year marks 10 years since I began working for East Hartford Public Schools. Before I taught Spanish, I was a bilingual tutor at Langford, and later the EL bilingual coordinator. In reflecting on the past decade and all the various roles that I've held, consistent in those roles. First, that I have a tendency to bring a questionable amount of houseplants to each room that I work in. Second, and more importantly, I've always been surrounded by colleagues like you who set an incredibly high standard for serving and empowering the East Hartford community. Staff at the Board of Ed, Central Registration, and those in countless other roles, for your unwavering dedication to helping students, families, and one another succeed time and time again. I consider myself incredibly fortunate to have worked alongside such passionate and committed role models throughout the district. I also consider myself fortunate to do what I do. I get to teach some of our youngest learners how to communicate across cultures, honor their own heritage and the heritage of others, build bridges instead of walls, and celebrate the diversity of others instead of diminishing it. all of which are especially important at this moment in our country's history. For some of my students, I get to introduce them to a new and exciting language. For others, I help them strengthen the Spanish that they already speak and encourage them to share their culture, traditions, and dialect with peers. Last year, to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, I asked families to send in photos and videos of their children showcasing Hispanic culture, traditions, and the Spanish language. This culminated in a slideshow of kids giving cooking tutorials, doing read-alouds, making travel vlogs, and even an original choreographed dance. Just like my students, this presentation was one of a kind, and if you're interested, it can be viewed on the O'Connell website, and I highly recommend that you do so. It was great. Together, my students and I explore Hispanic art, cuisine, history, and music. I get to witness the joy in their faces when they count how many classmates are present or greet a friend in Spanish for the first time. And by the way, if you've never been greeted by a line of kindergartners whispering, "¿Cómo estás?" I highly recommend it. It's one of those experiences that sticks with you, and come by O'Connell, we'd be happy to show you anytime. Though teaching is one of the most challenging professions out there, I hope each of you can find joy in both the big wins and the small victories that you will have this year. Remember, no matter how well a lesson goes or doesn't go, or how tough a day might feel, know that you're not in it alone. Even though I'm the only elementary world language teacher in East Hartford, I never do my job alone. None of us do. We do it together, supporting each other, sharing ideas, and modeling what it truly means to be a community. We create safe spaces for our students, we model resilience, we nurture curiosity, and we live in the promise of our district's motto, cada niño, cada día. Every child, every day. Here's to another year of working together to make a difference for every child, every day. Thank you and have a wonderful school year. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our student speaker for today's event, incoming senior at SIBA, Sam Ramasubramaniam.
Thank you, Senor Dunnack, for that introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Ramasubramaniam, and I am a senior at the Connecticut IB Academy. I'm delighted to have been selected as the student speaker for this year's East Hartford Public Schools Convocation. In my time at SIBA and in the East Hartford public school system, I've been able to understand what an educator truly is. On paper, a teacher might be defined as someone who plans lessons, delivers instruction, and assesses student progress. But anyone who has spent time in a classroom knows it's so much more than that. Being an educator is not a simple job. It is a role that goes far beyond the classroom. It's about fostering curiosity, encouraging growth, and motivating kids to pursue knowledge. Teachers spend time encouraging students to explore their interests and develop confidence in their abilities. Teaching is about student needs. Not only are teachers essential to a school, but so are the other dedicated professionals who support. Not stopping there, we have our school resource officers who help ensure that students have a safe community. Our crossing guards help keep students safe on their walks to school at the beginning and ends of the day. And let's not forget the other vital members of our schools, including administration, paraprofessionals, tutors, nurses, cafeteria staff, IT specialists, and more. Every staff member for EHPS is dedicated to making schools better for students. At SIBA, I've been fortunate to see that kind of dedication firsthand. The teachers here consistently go above and beyond. Whether I've had them in a class or not, I've witnessed how committed they are to supporting students. My teachers support my peers and I by always answering our questions, providing feedback on our work to help us improve, and connecting what we're learning to the real world. Outside of just my teachers, I've been able to ask a school tutor for help whenever I need it, and my favorite school meals, despite usually eating a packed lunch from home, are thanks to SIBA's cafeteria staff's dedication. But their commitment doesn't end in the classroom. Many teachers and staff give even more of their time to serve as advisors for clubs, coach sports teams, and simply show up at events students have worked hard to plan. As a member of the Student Advisory Board and other clubs at school, I know how much work goes into putting together school events and how meaningful it is to see teachers and faculty present showing their support. This kind of dedication makes a lasting difference in the schooling experience kids, including me, have, helping us not only succeed academically, but allowing us to grow into kind people who inquire about the world around them. So today, I want to thank all of you here for being a part of this educated community. Thank you for showing up, inspiring us, and making learning something to love. I hope you all have an amazing school year. And for our final speaker of the program, it is my pleasure to welcome our East Hartford Public Schools Superintendent to the stage, Mr. Thomas Anderson.
Good morning. It's always a privilege and an honor to be able to stand before you in this role. And again, it never gets old. Each year I'm probably going to say it, as a graduate of East Hartford Public Schools, this is not something that we ever thought about, and especially those who knew me when we were at Stevens Elementary, which is now Synergy School. And so when we think about our progress and our mission going forward, indulge me for the next 15 or 20 minutes as we kind of run through some things setting up the year for us. So here we are again. Each new school year feels like a new beginning. We talk about the excitement, the energy, the sense of renewal. At this time, when we think about welcoming the new members to our team, our new teachers and other educators that have joined us this past week, we see our other colleagues that have jumped into different roles, and we look forward to the great work that they'll do continuing to elevate our district as a whole. But also we know it's true though, I know many of us wouldn't mind one more week of all that summer brings. There's nothing wrong with that, as we're all humans. We live for the memories and the opportunities to create more. So as we share a little bit, each year I'm always reminded, hey, here's that opportunity to kind of share a little bit. When I visit buildings, I don't like interrupting classes and those type of things, but it's always good to have an opportunity when you're walking and talking with individuals. We all have those who mean the most to us, and we think about our families and those that are the drivers of the work that continues to be done. And she started in her first game yesterday. They didn't win, but they were in St. Louis. It's going to be a good year. But we think about the time and energy that goes into all of these things. Those of you that have already done this for the year and will be doing it, I know some people are doing drop-offs this week, but that storage thing is always going to be there. You know, the trips on American and Delta and the investment, I call it an investment in Target. Doesn't matter if the CEO may change, the money is still spent there every year. And as I click back on the boys, they weren't quite as expensive as Layla. So she knows it, so if anyone ever sees her, you can tell her I said that. But when we think about the different trips, you know, this is our 7th year spending a fall in Memphis as one of our boys, as Bryce graduated from there and Layla entered. And you learn a lot about a city. And so this summer, having to go there, spending time at a small superintendent's meeting in D.C., also being in Memphis, because all of those years we've been there, we don't always look at some of the historical things that exist. So it's always a good opportunity to take advantage of those things. The family trip, because they're all old enough now to weigh in, even though they didn't pay for anything, we were convinced to go to Panama, and it was a tremendous learning experience, and it was economically safe, so if you're always interested, it's a good place to go. But thinking of the city, and my understanding of showing this picture is because that city didn't look that way 20 years ago. So the investment and growth that they've had over the last 20 years, showing a picture of the bars because we were in the Panama Canal, and the historical references that they make, and we think about we're in a unique space and time in history. But that barge there can take 6 to 7 hours to go through and cost almost $1 million for that one ship. So it is one of those things where you continue to learn and see all of the different things that exist outside of our borders. Now, I'm always going to share these, so you can save your comments about the one on the right. But it is, I hear you. but it is one of those things that we have no control over what they do. I can continue to choose to support, but I'll be honest, it takes a lot of energy to watch those games. I'm emotionally invested. I don't know why, because we don't get paid when they win or lose. But we just think about those type of things in the historical context of it. So as you think about the memories, every year in my superintendent's career, I have dressed the same way. I've always worn the shirt and tie and the jacket. I have the jacket on. It's a little bit cold in here, as I told you. But the shirt and tie has always been there. But when we think about some memories that we cherish the most and what we do to make those connections, some were not so much the easiest of times, but they were meaningful. Challenges that were overcome, accomplishments, the laughter, the tears, the smiles, all of those things that exist. So for me, one of those memories, it's not about when we talk about living in the past, it's about you recognize that and you want to support and recognize how we're doing those things. So you can indulge me for a couple of minutes when I think about, now think back to the memories you cherish the most and how we're doing that. So for me, one of those memories was, I'll take off my jacket now, was on Saturday, December 5th, 1987. So there's someone out in the Spear, not in this room right now, but Tim DeMarco knows because he played, but Danny Lawrence, who's here, contributed tremendously to that. Also Todd Albert. So when we think about how that game went that day, you know, we arrived around 10 o'clock in the, we arrived around 8 o'clock in the morning. The game was at 10. A game against Hamden High School for the state Class LL championship. It was freezing. It felt like we were playing in the parking lot, not on grass. And although we were very good, we were the underdogs against their super quarterback who later starred at UConn Hoops and went on to play in the NBA, not the NFL. But when we think of how that game ended, which we did win, but it wasn't just about that one day. It was about the process, the years of coming together, and then not knowing that it all started when we were 9 and 10-year-olds. We learned to galvanize as a team. We built unity out of rivalry. The Cardinals, Vikings, Elks, Mustangs, those of you with East Hartford history know a little bit about that. But when you think of those names, and by 9th grade, in this very building, we came together. The first combined class of the new black and gold East Hartford High School. But for those first 2 years, it was called East Hartford-Penny. We carried with us about 600 classmates, a lifetime of lessons, and a defining bond. That's what still excites and motivates me about our work and the potential that we have here. Now, as we shift into thinking about and recognizing the support in the summer and all the individuals that are here when those temperatures are very hot, a little bit cooler, in the rain, our team is still there taking care of business so we could be ready to open today. When you're driving around, everyone that's hearing today, you'll see most of this at your buildings. Being able to see what the facility upgrades are. We talk about our academic programs for ESY, our Summer Bridges academic programs, our Summer College Boot Camp, which one of our former students, I was here to see her, who's a rising junior who came back to share the information. Coding it, but being honest and sharing, you have the ability. Tremendous efforts and donations by several of the community members, showing more of those opportunities there. We were fortunate. It's always good when we are picked and people highlight the work that's there. So the governor came that day. It was great. It fit into his schedule, but he walked around, gave some encouraging words and those type of things. It's not about style over substance. It's about we are recognized for the work that you do. My job is to make sure we continue to put the space so you can be recognized and supported so we can continue that great work. More partnership with the community center at the, we keep changing the name, but it's the community center now. So we take full advantage of that opportunity to be there as well. and the partnership we have with the town. And I definitely want to thank our board chair, Tyron Harris, for always being supportive as we have these ideas to make sure we can follow through. But definitely the mayor's office for understanding, as that building there on the left is going to be the health center for the Norris School campus. And on the right side, many of you have been into that side of the larger conference room where we can have professional development and invite people to come in where we're not taking up space during the day in our school buildings. So as we continue and we see what is it about our strategic plan. Now, we build on the Pride in 5. We know the vision and the mission. I'm never going to ask you as a quiz to tell me, okay, what's our mission and what's our vision? So again, the plan is not about having these trendy sayings. It's about what is the work that we're doing. How does it connect to our core values? What are our beliefs? As we go all the way back to that 80s theme of 1987 and different music and those type of things, what were we doing, some of us, because some of us may not have been here yet, but what were we doing at that time in making those connections? So at any point in your life, when you're able to go back and think of, okay, this is who I am now, who am I going to become? And now when you've become almost that person, look back to see what is it that we continue to need to do. When we think about coherence, what does that work look like? We think about clarifying clarifying our mission, our objectives. How do we measure it? Are we focusing on what matters the most versus just what people think we should be doing? What's that collective effort? And then accountability. Accountability means so much. We are accountable to each other. It's not always punitive. And I want to make sure we continue to understand that. I believe that what's going to happen is going to happen. But when we're thinking about that level of accountability, how does it work? So we see our goals that we have leading into what our focus is last year, this year, next year, the next several years. We don't change that every year. We just keep tightening it up. We hone in on it. We see the supports that we need to be able to provide those resources to get there. Everything is interconnected. We can talk about the trendy saying about, well, the why, well, my why is this, and they sound really good. We've seen videos of people singing and doing all these type of things. That's great. But what does it really look like, and how do we master that part of it? The piece that we added in terms of systems thinking, these are things that we already do. We talk about the importance of relationships, but what are all those other things that are connected? How are the departments working, whether you're in the school or outside of the school? What is it that we do independently, but we depend on others to make everything work? So I won't go through all of these with you, but just thinking of those systems that are there and the systems thinking right there. Everything, we are an educational institution, educational organization. Everything goes back to the teaching and learning process. So when we think about how we make those connections, that's how we want to frame it and continue doing it. Again, it's not anything new. I do want to take a couple minutes and just share a common perspective on this. I'm thinking I have to push play. There we go.
Well, the term systems thinking is really a mixed bag, and I use it very, very cautiously. First, both words are problematic,
Obviously,
but the word system is the most problematic. Because if you say the word system, the picture or image that pops up into most people's head is computer system. Like, we need a systems expert here because our system's not working. The second most common association is management control system, as it's not my fault, it's the stupid system. Right? So these are the two associations that come first to people, and neither of them is what we're trying to help people understand. So whenever I'm trying to help people understand what this word system means, I usually start off by saying, are you part of a family? Everybody is part of a family. Have you ever been seen in a family people producing consequences in the family, how people act, how people feel, that aren't what anybody intends? Yep. How does that happen? Well, then people can tell their stories and think about it, but that then grounds people in not the jargon, system or systems thinking, but the reality. that we live in webs of interdependence. A family is a fairly close-knit one. You can kind of see most all the key players. But still, even though we can identify maybe on a list of 10 or 15 names, here's all the key people in my immediate family, still the complexity of interactions amongst all those people is obviously such that consistently families produce outcomes that nobody wants, which is the other kind of, you might say, fundamental rationale for all of this. It's not to, quote, understand systems. That's an abstraction. It's to understand how it is that the problems that are the most vexing and difficult and intransigent that we all deal with come about. And obviously, to get a perspective on those problems that gives us some leverage and some insight as to what we might do differently.
So when we think about that and making all the connections, we heard words from our student speaker, from Sam this morning, and from our Teacher of the Year, Drew, in terms of the work is very hard. We don't need to make it harder than it needs to be. It's challenging, and it always has been, and it will continue to be challenging. So how do we do the continuous learning cycle of having it where the educational process is in the middle? How do we keep working to prepare our students to be the best that they can be, but also supporting one another so we can be the best that we can be to deliver that? Again, the overall perspective and focus, I've used those little roads all the time, you won't get it, but that's how we are as people. Everyone has a different need. Takes us a little bit more time to get in certain places, and the roads are a little bit bumpy and some are a little bit smoother than others. But it doesn't mean that someone else has it easier or the grass is greener. We all have our individual challenges that we need to encounter, and as we think about this space in terms of how we are as people, that gets to it as well. So again, the strategic plan piece of those 5 goals that we have, building off of the Pride in 5, as I mentioned before. Our district actions, so the new plan that we are going to be sharing, again, just builds off of the work that already existed. We need an action plan. We need to be more centered and focused to make sure we're able to support all of our schools and all of our departments so we're more centered and focused. And we think about the different goals that are there, prioritizing our systems and our supports, being able to share what does that look like. And so when we talk about being collaborative and innovative and prioritizing training and implementation of tiered supports, what does that look like? So the focus is to make sure we're all clear and we're all of like mind. We're going to be in different places of how we grasp it. There'll be different perspectives on how we should do it. But again, as I said before, the clarity of what's there to ensure that we are all aware and we know that the direction we're going in is the correct direction. Again, for goal 3, strengthen collaborative family community partnerships. The organizational team and district systems, when we think about retaining teachers, we want all of you, it's great that you all came back. We know some of your colleagues made other choices, and that's, people are going to do what's in the best interest of them. My thing is to make sure that those of you that want to be here, we want you to be here. Again, not making things more challenging than is necessary. And the last piece for this one, in terms of how do we develop that confidence and pride? It's not just something that we should say. We shouldn't just go out there and saying, well, you should thank us for the job. No. What does it really mean? So as we have this as a goal, but how do we get at that? How do we measure it? When I walk in buildings and, I really try to make it informal. We walk in, we see what's going on. I want to see how the resources are being used that we think that you need and what has been shared. So as we go in and seeing the teaching and learning process in real time, being able to support, complement that work that each of you are doing every day. Now the last component, there's been a lot of work on the vision of a graduate. And Anna Capobianco led a team of some other people. I know the principal, Mr. Ryan, was on it with some others, really taking the lead on this work over the last year or so. And as it continues to roll out to see, this is what we want from our students. But also thinking in that same conversation, what is it that we want from our staff? What do we want from one another to be able to ensure that this is a reality? So the vision of the graduate. It's not just going to be a nice, colorful document that sits there. It's real life. There's several students each year that are graduating and they're going on to do great things, whether they're going into the military, they're going to college, or doing trade schools. We're already doing it. Last week, the U.S. News and World Report put out more information again that SEBA is #1 high school in Connecticut 2 years running. With that, because I know the number 109 is bigger than 1, but 109 ranking in the United States of America is tremendous. So they're up from 109, up to 109 from, I think it was 117 last year. So the work that's being done in all of our schools is reflected. So as we support one another and be proud of the accomplishments of one building, other buildings, all of our students and all of our colleagues, this is where we go, and this is how we continue to move forward. So I'll run through some of these, and again, some of the information, we'll share it out. But again, a student, we want to be a self-motivated learner, curious inquirer. So when they're asking all those questions, I know sometimes you're like, okay, enough, but we want them to ask questions. We want them to really dig deeply into that thinking, but then also what kind of questions are we asking them to make our students be critical thinkers? Be creative in an innovative space, that passion and creativity that they have. An effective communicator. We shouldn't be impressed to say, oh, there's someone so articulate. Well, why wouldn't they be? We want all of our students to be the best writers at the highest level, and they can communicate and articulate all of their thoughts. Being a collaborative team member. And although, I had this, I thought it'd be a fun thing to wear this jersey today to kind of reflect on some things, but it really signifies a lot more when we talk about being a collaborative team member. You build those bonds and those relationships with people many, many, many years ago. I counted them up, but I feel I won't say it right now. So if you think about all those years ago and everything in between, you think about your own families and how we are working to be a team member. And the sport part is easy, but it's how are we team members in life? How are we collaborating with one another? How do we stand down? How do we make sure our students are seeing how we best support one another in the process? And then being an engaged citizen. We can't just keep saying we're in a unique time in history. We just are. Every year is a unique time, whether it was 60 years ago, whether it was 10 years ago, whether it's now. Regardless of what your politic ideas are and all those kind of things, it's always going to be a unique space. And so thinking of how are we cultivating that space for our students to be able to develop their own social capital so they can be engaged, so they can make the best decisions that are going to work for them and their family in the future. So we share all of those different pieces, and I did have some notes I'm supposed to say in closing. Again, so here we are, another beginning, another chance to come together, to treasure what we've built, and to cultivate new memories this year, not just for ourselves, but for the students and families whom we trust. Yes, this time of year always carries excitement, but it is more than just a routine. For those new students walking into school for the first time, for the parents watching their child into kindergarten, middle school, or high school, for those just entering the season of an empty nest, this beginning matters. Our influence stretches far beyond our classrooms and hallways. Our sphere of influence touches lives, futures, and communities. Let's ask ourselves, what are we most proud of? And what must we do to grow further, to prosper more, to strengthen our influence? So when we highlight the impact of our work and we showcase some of these highlights that have happened over the past year, highlighting more of the opportunities for East Hartford to be in the forefront of ensuring that our students and our staff are being recognized. More of the great work of many of our teachers. And again, many things that we will continue strengthening this year, continue to build, and there'll be lots of expansion as well. So a few thoughts as we step into this year. These are some points that I keep thinking because they come close to mind to me. And as I said, clarity before action. Know what the work is before we make decisions. Progress over perfection. Sometimes it's going to take a little while. And we can always recognize the progress of the work. Listen to understand. This is not anything new. You've heard it before, but sometimes it's a good reminder. And I share this because I always take a step back and try to be reflective as well. Lead with both head and heart. We have to have that balance, especially as we're treating others and engaging with the youngest that we deal with. And then celebrate small successes. We're in education, and I think sometimes we're reluctant to say how well something is going because it's not at 100%. So I shared earlier one of those slides, and we talked about the Cowboys, but we didn't talk about the Yankees. It's great they won yesterday. However, you think about the averages in sports. If a team is winning 70%, they're not doing too badly. As educators, we think of that a little bit differently. So it's not that we celebrate mediocrity, we continue to push. But we need to make sure we're recognizing and celebrating the progress along the way. And I think that's what the challenge ends up being sometimes. So one of my favorite reminders as I close out of the power of influence comes from the words of Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. As we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. We are liberated from our own fear. Our presence automatically liberates others. So again, your presence automatically liberates others in the space we're in. We have the talent, the will, and the commitment to make this an extraordinary year. So let's shine, not just for every student who depends on our light, but for ourselves as you deserve it. Here's to leading with coherence, clarifying our focus, measuring progress, being accountable to one another, and to making 25-26 school year the best yet. Thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing all of you. Here's to a great year. Thank you. Sorry, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Ryan, the high school people, for always being here. We appreciate you hosting. We'll do it again next year. Thank you. Are they waiting for you? Are they? I guess Mr. Ryan's going to talk to you all so you can...